Welcome to Confidence Bites. Start your week the confident way with short, juicy confidence takeaways brought to you by Stuart Elliott from Double C Coaching. Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Confidence Bites. And I'm really honored today to have as a special guest Virginia Phillips from the Triumph After Trauma Academy. And she's got some wonderful things to share with you. But first, let me just tell you a little bit about her. So Virginia Phillips is a communication and leadership expert. She is the owner of Triumph After Trauma Academy, an inspirational speaker, a personal coach, a survivor, and an author. Her Entrepreneur Success Academy is changing the landscape of small business coaching. And Virginia's professional experience includes years of leading teams and business management advising. She earned a master's degree in human resource management along with certifications in leadership, human resources, and mediation. Despite significant life snags, she sees life as a journey, discovering opportunities to enhance the lives of others. Her hunger for life is impressive and her life story is inspiring. And when Virginia isn't looking for ways to make the world a better place, she spends her time hiking, writing, and traveling. And Virginia, welcome and thank you very much for coming. That's a very impressive resume.
It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to have your listeners listen to us for the time that they're giving us.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's about half an hour or a little bit longer, depending how long it takes, to give the information that's going to help them. And I know you've got some wonderful stories to tell us. So could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I grew up in the United States and have lived all over the United States and worked for corporate America, as I refer to it as, in the human resources field. And that field means I help managers lead better and employees be more successful. And through that career, I wound up in Europe for several years. And I had the opportunity to work with what we would refer to as local nationals over there, which means I really went to work with citizens from Europe. And it was just a wonderful experience for me to bring that culture and understand how other cultures work and live besides in America. And then several years ago, I moved back to the United States and started my own business.
Mm-hmm. And, obviously this show is about confidence. Do you have any stories you'd like to tell us about confidence struggles or anything like that?
Oh, certainly. I think everybody suffers with lack of confidence from time to time. And some of us suffer more than others. And that goes back to who we are as human beings. Some of our DNA charges us to be a little more cautious, as you may. And if we have that type of DNA in us that causes us to be more cautious, we're not as confident when we go out into the world. But a lot of the confidence issues have to do with previous experience, environments people are in. Maybe they're in a very harsh work environment or harsh home life environment, and your body internalizes that. And it's difficult to stay happy and difficult to stay confident in who you are when your environment has so much that tells us we shouldn't be confident. I look around the world and there are so many nations at war, and I don't know how the kids in those cultures grow up to be confident human beings when they're worried about their next meal.
Yeah, I suppose they become comfortable in that limited environment, but outside of it, then they have a lot of different issues, don't they?
They do. So my own personal struggles really have to revolve around my health. I have not been the healthiest individual. So school, I missed a lot of school as a kid. And so getting good grades in school and being successful in school was tough for me. And it was always nerve-wracking for me to succeed in school because I just wasn't there enough to feel confident in grasping the material that was being taught to me. And when you miss so much of school, that is your foundation to your work and to your living, it's really hard then to go out into the work world saying, I've got this, I know what I'm doing, because I missed so much of that foundation. And what it allowed me to do with that confidence, lack of confidence, is I just worked harder. I worked harder to fill in those gaps that I missed when I was a kid because I was so sick.
So you're saying that you found a way to compensate for the circumstances.
Absolutely. And I think a number of us do that have environmental factors or personal factors that aren't our strongest pieces of us. We certainly can, compensate in many ways. And one of the things I see people compensating in is just working harder, putting in more effort, finding the latest tool, or finding a mentor that can mentor them on the pieces that maybe they missed previously. And there are mentors around the world that can step in. Even in your case, you do a lot of teaching in English to folks around the world, really. And so they know that is a piece that will make them more confident in this world. So they go out and get that and add that to their experiences.
Yeah, and I think the mentorship is important, but it's not just limited to one key area, because if we just take teaching as an example, it's okay having a mentor in English, but even if you know English, you may need somebody to help you have the confidence to use it and to accept that you have those extra skills, and maybe mentor you on different life skills that have missed. In your experience, do you think that the fact that you weren't at school hampered you a little bit with your communication abilities with the other students, because you weren't able to interact as much as they were?
Oh, I'm certain in many respects it did. They were on one page in terms of what we have learned, and I'm so far behind where they are at. It's almost at times we didn't speak the same language. Yeah. And it's really hard to interact with the world when you feel like you're just so far behind than everybody else. And so one of the things I did also to build my self-confidence is I found people that were also challenged but really succeeded. And they didn't have to be in my life, but there are inspirational stories all over this world. People that have come from almost nothing doing amazing things. Figure out who they are, really learn their story, and then internalize that, saying if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. So why is it then, do you think, that some people struggle with confidence more than others? I mean, there must be something in their makeup or something along that way that affects them.
I do think it has a lot to do with personality types. There are personality types that are much more analytical, and personality types that are much more driven and much more willing to take risk and just plow through whatever challenges. So I think personality types has a lot to do with it, but our environment has a lot to do with it. There's a lot of studies between men and women that the way our environment treats women really has them questioning their self-confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I was just reading something last week about the way a lot of firms in the UK especially are hampering women because of the dress codes that they're forcing them to adhere to. They're not allowed to express themselves, and it's ridiculous in many ways.
Right. But even on the TV here earlier today, I heard them wishing a woman a happy birthday. It's her 45th, I think, birthday, and they called her a little girl. Now that's how does that help those of us that are watching that interaction feel confident as a woman if we're referred to as little girls?
Yeah, and it's these little things, isn't it, that just keep coming in all the time. Just like, a parent might, or a teacher might say, you're stupid, you're never going to learn anything, you're never going to amount to much. It comes in enough times, and then it becomes the reality that they face every day.
Exactly. And I think there is more of that in our environments than most of us realize.
Mm-hmm.
And when you study that and your ears are tuned to that, you really begin to question how much of our environment drives our lack of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
We have a big commercial store here in the United States called Target.
Mm-hmm.
And a little girl wrote Target and said she didn't like the way the toys were displayed. The boys' toys were often more earthy toned, mm-hmm. and more, war toys and architectural toys, and really driven to build mm-hmm. the confidence of these young boys. Whereas the girls, it was a lot of dolls and dress-up dolls and mm-hmm. fashion. Mm-hmm. And this young girl said, why can't we have the architectural toys? Mm-hmm. Why do they always have to be aimed at the boys?
Yeah, I mean, this type of programming starts at a very, very young age, doesn't it?
It does.
If you just take that example, a lot of parents, they don't expect the girls to play with the boys' toys. They don't expect the guys to play with the dolls. These are for the right. girls and these are for the guys. And there is some merit in having that type of thing, but when it's always directed, the girls can only have this, or the boys can only have this, then you get issues that come from that, don't you?
Right. But it's more than that. In many cultures in the world, the boys will go off and fish with their father mm-hmm. for the food and bring home food, and that's very rewarding. And the women are left home to clean the floors, only for the men to come home and serve them what they've caught. And there's a lot of ingrained expectations mm-hmm. out of the boys and out of the girls in those specific circumstances. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, well, this becomes a big cultural thing, doesn't it? And it's very, very difficult to, change it, and it won't change quickly because it's culture in a lot of instances.
Very much so. The other thing that we look at with confidence is hormones. Mm-hmm. There's something about testosterone in the men. Women also have testosterone, but mm-hmm. men tend to have a little more than the women do. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, testosterone is really good for self-confidence.
Yeah, no, I understand it is. So, even the guy who's suffering from that, from a lack of testosterone, he will yes. probably suffer from a lack of confidence in many ways. And
yes.
I think this is in some ways where this feeling of being emasculated, comes from, because there's a lack of hormones right. and that type of thing.
Right. But I don't want the men listening to this thinking that they also can't suffer from a lack of confidence.
No, I mean, the funny thing about confidence is you can be confident in one area, but in another area, you can be just totally go to pieces. I mean, you can take a person who is, for instance, a very, very good leader, but if he has to give a speech in public, just like the King's speech, he goes to pieces. He just goes to pieces. He doesn't have the confidence to speak in public, but every other aspect is perfect.
Yeah. And some of that has to do with experience. Mm-hmm. If you were to put a piano in front of me and ask me to play a beautiful piece, it would terrify me. Mm-hmm. I've never done very good with instruments. Mm-hmm. And most folks that are introduced to an instrument, they're not good at the beginning, but you give them practice. Mm-hmm. And over the time they practice, they get a little better and a little better and a little better, and they develop incredible confidence.
Yeah, but then again, you still have the performance anxiety that comes in, don't you? Because they could play the piece to their friends or to themselves, but when they have to go in front of the teacher or the public, then the performance anxiety comes in and all the confidence goes away. I mean, Marilyn Monroe and many other stars have had this problem, that they were very confident in their abilities and everything else, but when it came to the real crunch time, then they had big issues that they had to fight to get over before they could really let themselves be the person they knew they could. So,
and I agree. And some of that is really experience, but some of that has to do with the fears in our head. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it can come from a very young age, it can come from society, it can come from so many different places, and then we build it, don't we? We create it.
We do. And part of our human beings is that flight or fight response. And when we're proficient in playing the piano, we have a fight response. But when we're put in front of an audience that brings a fear response, we want to run.
And that can also come from failure, can't it? That
Yes.
You've made mistakes before. So how can you turn those mistakes into a positive aspect of your life?
Well, I will tell you, there are so many people in this world that have created inventions that we rely on today that were out of mistakes. The microwave is one of them. The X-ray machine is one of them. And we all rely on that. And that came through mistakes. One of my favorite mistakes is by a cook in China who discovered fireworks. He wasn't planning for his pan to explode, but it did. And somebody thought, well, this is really great. So your perception of a mistake may end up leading to something great.
Yeah, and it's that perception which is crucial, isn't it? And we're not saying that someone should set the kitchen on fire just to find a new invention, but it's the perception that this is wrong or I failed, and the perception needs to be changed. That okay, great, I've made a mistake. What can I learn from it? And if we can change that thinking around, then we can profit from the mistakes, can't we?
And there are a number of really, really successful people that made significant mistakes early on in their career. You have Oprah Winfrey, who was fired. You have Walt Disney, who was told he didn't have any imagination, and nobody needed him. Do you think he suffered from confidence? You bet he did.
Yeah, but it didn't stop it.
Go ahead.
It didn't let it stop him, though, did he?
He didn't. And, so we have those types of things that you could internalize as failures. But he didn't let it stop him. There are other events that people really do. I could trip out my stairs here and I would see that as a failure. But the fact that I got up and didn't let it stop me shows that I have courage, determination, and that builds character. And people respect that.
Yeah, and it's you're saying about tripping up and not letting it stop you, and it just takes you back to childhood. How many times does a young baby fall over when it's learning to walk?
It doesn't. I think the stat is like 1,000 times. Yeah, something like that.
And it doesn't stop it. Okay, it needs the encouragement that it's going to be okay, but it doesn't stop it because most people learn to walk. There are maybe a few who don't.
And the environment around that baby trying to walk is parents and other people picking them up saying it's okay.
It's that support structure, isn't it? That mentor.
Yeah. Well, in a support group, when I talk to folks about overcoming trauma or change, the number one thing they say to keep them going down that road is the people around them encouraging them to do it.
It is.
And we do that for little babies trying to walk. But at some point, that support changes when we become an adult. But if you have the one friend or the 5 friends or the 15 friends that say, it's okay, keep going, you're more likely to have the confidence to do it.
Yeah, and you say that changes. Sometimes people perceive that you're an adult, so you don't need support anymore, because you should be able to handle this. But everybody needs support, don't they? Whether it's a friend or a mentor or whatever. And we also have to be very careful with the support we get, whether it's biased support. When you have some friends, very close friends, who are using you as the ladder or the sounding board because they can always be better than you in some way. And this is a very, very subtle thing, but you go to them for support or with a genuine question and they say, no, don't do that. You shouldn't do that. It won't work, because then they are the person who suffers if you get successful. So their support becomes biased, and we've got to be very careful who we go to for the support, don't we?
We do. There's an example I learned from one of my mentors, and he did a lot of crab fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And in crab fishing, you put the bucket out, and you've got a whole bucket of crabs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be one crab that doesn't want to be in the bucket. So that crab starts climbing out of that bucket,
mm-hmm.
and there will be other crabs that pull that crab down
mm-hmm.
and say, this is where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Don't leave us.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have some of that cultural normacy, as you may,
mm-hmm.
that can cause a lack of self-confidence.
Mm-hmm. And that it's such a subtle thing that you don't notice it, but you've got to be aware of it. And it happens in families as well, where maybe a parent, when the child was very, very young, decides my child is going to be a nuclear physicist or whatever, and this child wants to be a fashion designer, and the parents are forcing them to go the wrong way, and they can't succeed because it's not their forte. And if they were allowed to do what their calling was, then the confidence would be there all the time. But the parents are saying, pushing them down, holding them down because of their agenda. And it's a subtle thing. It's not planned that we're going to hurt the child. We think we're doing the best, but we're not actually helping. We are causing a lack of confidence in many ways.
We are. And a good example of that is Vera Wang. She's
mm-hmm.
a great fashion designer.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of her?
I've heard of Vera Wang, yeah. I don't wear her clothes, but...
So I don't know whether she was pushed or forced, but
mm-hmm.
I know she was an Olympic skater for
mm-hmm.
a while.
Yeah.
And she didn't make the team. She failed at skating for the Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
Her story shows that she failed at that.
Yeah.
And at the age of 40 is when she decided to change careers and become a fashion designer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really where she needed to be all along.
Mm-hmm.
But she spent so much time in another arena trying to make that work for her,
mm-hmm.
and it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So when she started her fashion design world, she just ran with it.
Yeah, because it's now a big release of energy and freedom, isn't it? It's not sort of forcing yourself to do something which is not, suited to you. And it's nothing to do with intelligence. It's to just do with, this is my calling. This is what I'm here to do. And some people are here for this and some people are here for that. But if you can find that calling, then your confidence just explodes, because now everything just works, doesn't it? It's not a fight anymore.
Right. And I think she fought for everything that she had in the skating world.
Mm-hmm.
And she just wasn't making what she had expected to make.
Mm-hmm.
She switched to something that worked much better for her, and she's done a phenomenal job.
Well, this fighting is also exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very, very exhausting. So, you can never perform at your peak if you're always fighting with something. And that can also affect your relationships with your family, with your friends, with your coach, with everybody around you, because something just doesn't work. Something's not right.
Right. Well, and what I have found, at least in America, and I didn't ask these questions when I lived in Europe,
mm-hmm.
is we don't teach young children and most adults to create personal mission statements.
I don't remember anything of that when I was at school. So I don't even remember being taught how to communicate. And these vital things seem to be missed because we're focused on a certain aspect of education only.
Right. So I believe if each individual from the age of 5 to 120
mm-hmm.
would sit down and figure out what their mission is in life. And it doesn't have to be anything really, really complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I know a young kid's mission in life is to be a force for good.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
My mission in life is to be an inspiration to others.
Mm-hmm.
And that can take many different forms. But if I am doing something in my life that doesn't fit my mission, then I am not going to spend my time doing that.
Mm-hmm. And as you say, it doesn't have to be that complicated, because if you try to make it too complicated, then you start getting the negativity because you're not succeeding. So if you say a child has to, his mission is a force for good, how many millions of ways can he manifest that? And almost everything he does, he can then get rewarded because he's fulfilling his mission in some way.
Correct. The story that goes along with that is this young child decided he wanted to be a force for good. Mm-hmm. And he had a day that he was behaving very badly to his mother. Mm-hmm. And when his father came home from work, his mother's like, you need to deal with him. Mm-hmm. And so this kid came into the room with all these excuses why he was terrible that day. Mm-hmm. And the father said, I have one question for you. If your mission in life is being a force for good, how did any of those actions get you to your mission?
Mm-hmm. And that stopped it dead.
It stopped it dead. The child had no real comeback to that.
No.
No. And I see that work for children, young adults, and older adults. Mm-hmm. We lose, especially in our daily routines, we lose who we are. We run to the grocery store and we run to these children's events, and we work long days at work. We're trying to juggle cleaning our house and seeing our parents and all of that. And through that, who are we?
Mm-hmm. And this is the thing, we forget, we get lost in daily life, and we forget who we are and how we can still do all these things but be the force for good or be something else. How we can just do one little thing to touch someone's life. If we just imagine you go into the store and you make somebody smile by something you do, then you've been a force for good, and it affects you in so many ways because you feel good because you've made somebody smile. And it's such a small thing, but it's such a big thing.
Yeah, and you've talked to me enough to know it's those micro moments mm-hmm. that you must embrace and take advantage of, because mm-hmm. I think those are the moments that change your life. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that. I was working with a couple earlier this week, and I said, you have to, really engage in a specific moment and be fully present in that moment, and it might last 3 or 4 seconds, but it will change your relationship today, tomorrow, mm-hmm. the next day, mm-hmm. because you were truly present. And in today's world, with all the technology distractions and how busy our schedules are, I think we forget to be present for ourselves in those moments.
Yeah, because we're more focused on the external. Mm-hmm. We're not focused on ourselves. We don't have a sense of self a lot of the times because everything is revolving around, as you say, technology, busy, rushing here. I've got the kids to take here. I've got these kids to take there. I've got to do this and this and this and then juggle about 500 things. And we don't take that time. Even, it doesn't have to be a long time. It's a few seconds, maybe a few moments just to take for ourselves. And then everything is much better when we do that, isn't it? We can think about, how we made somebody smile, or how this happened, or we did something for somebody, and then all of a sudden the perspective changes.
Yeah. So there was a story that hit the news recently of a young man who decided he wanted to give out a flower that day. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. So he went and got a sunflower and went to his local coffee shop. And when he went into the coffee shop, handed this woman a flower, mm-hmm. and she immediately started crying. Mm-hmm. And he found out that it was the anniversary of her husband's passing. And she believed the flower came from him.
That's a wonderful story. And, it's amazing that he...
A wonderful story, but how much effort did that really take for him?
Nothing. But, the other thing that gets me is that the timing. How did he know to give this flower to her at that time? There's something bigger in some ways, isn't there?
There is. But what I took away from that is he had a personal mission, mm-hmm. which I love, and he was really present in that moment. Mm-hmm. And that will be a moment that she cherishes for a really long time.
And him.
And he cherishes.
Yeah. And it reminds me of another story I read, and I can't remember how long ago. It wasn't too long ago, but there was a supermarket checkout assistant, the packer in the States. I don't know which city offhand, but he was a little bit slow. Mm-hmm. So he was doing menial work because, he didn't have... the highest intelligence for some of the other work, but he noticed that people were miserable, And he took it upon himself to write a little note or something in and put it in with the packing, something along the lines of, I really appreciate you, thank you, or something like that. And all of a sudden, people started reading these and recognized it came from him. And they wanted to go to his checkout. And all the managers saw this big queue. And they tried to get the people to go to the other checkouts. They said, no, we want to go here. They found out it was because of this guy who made them feel special. It's such a mundane situation. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. In fact, it doesn't need to be a big thing, does it? It's just the small things that we have to focus on that make the big moments.
Well, and how do you think it made him feel when the line was so long that people were there for him?
For him, yeah, because he's probably never had that before, because, he was, probably treated a little bit badly because he wasn't the same as everybody else. And that's the problem, isn't it?
It is. And I don't know that any of that changed his ability to pay his bills.
No.
His ability to get a girlfriend or
no, I think it just he just realized that he could be that force for good, and that's the thing you keep saying, isn't it? Just that moment, he just thought it was a good thing to do, just to write this little note to say thank you, because he appreciated them and he wanted to show them. And that little thing is such a big effect. It changes the whole world that we're living in.
Yeah, so that is really one of the things that I coach in my business. Is I want people to know who they are, not so much what they need to do for a living, not so much do they need to be married and have kids and go out to the party on Friday night or whatever, but when nothing else matters, what do you want us to remember about you?
And that's the thing, isn't it? Most of us got no idea what we're going to be remembered about. You may have some success-driven individuals who want to be the best manager or the best this or reach this level, but there's something missing all the way through. And that's one of the things which is driving them, because they're looking for this thing. And it's this little thing that they're appreciated.
Yeah, so when I teach some of my clients, I say, when we get, and I don't mean to be morbid, but when we go to your funeral and we remember who you are after you pass, we are not going to say you sold the most policies, that you were the #1 salesperson for 2 years. That's not what's going to come out of our mouth.
No.
Well, what's going to come out of our mouth is were they kind and gentle and they have a positive effect on his world or our world. That's what we're going to remember, and it is often so lost in what we do.
It is. We don't think about touching people's hearts, and that is the thing. I mean, I think I told you earlier that I went back to the UK a few years ago, and I was in the supermarket, and the checkout girl smiled at me. And I've forgotten that in that part of England, people are very friendly. And I looked behind me to say, who's she talking to? And no, it was me, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the? And it made my day. It really made me feel special, because she took that time to appreciate me. And who am I? She's never seen me before. I've never seen her before. I'm just a customer. But she took the moment to smile genuinely. It wasn't one of these fake smiles. It was a real warm smile. And that made the whole day change for me, because somebody took that time. And that's the important thing. And if she does that to everybody, that's what she'll be remembered for. She's the person who makes you smile, who makes you feel special. And that's a very, very good epitaph.
And she was present in that moment. And her ability to be present in that moment changed your confidence levels in yourself.
It did.
And you didn't even know you were struggling with
confidence.
I
mean, you just all of a sudden your chest swells out, your shoulders go back, and you think, somebody appreciates me, And it's such a fairly trivial interchange normally, but it became the highlight of the day because of one thing. And that is crucial, isn't it?
So I can talk about confidence being a part of a personality. I can talk about confidence being a part of DNA or hormones or environment or how you were raised or the people around you. But I truly believe confidence comes from your mission in your ability to be present in the moment for somebody else.
And how do you be present in the moment for somebody else?
Well, in America, I would say you need to put the cell phones down.
I think that's worldwide,
Put it down and look the person in the eye and do exactly what that grocery store clerk did, and look you in the eye and make sure that the other person in the room only feels like you're talking to them.
Yeah, it's
and
about
then you're truly in the moment.
Showing them that you do appreciate them for what they are.
Yeah. And you, I do not believe you can do it over the computer or over a cell phone. I mean, yeah, you can send a text, but to me, it's not the same as.
It's not the same. I think a text can help sometimes, but it's not the same as really being face to face, present with that person, because the energy is different, isn't it? It's everything that comes in that interchange. That really is.
It is. So I was lucky enough to go to a mental health summit here recently, and where all of these experts are in the room from different fields talking about what we can do to create better mental health in our society. And it really came down to one thing, and that was having a place for people to gather and communicate with one another.
And communicate from a genuine level, a genuine place.
Yes. Yes, we believed it would help the elderly from feeling lonely. We believed it would help.
On that level, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt. It just reminds me of a study that was done, I can't remember how long ago, but it was quite a few years ago, where elderly people who have pets tend to live 5 years longer because they have that companionship, they have that communication. Because very often elderly people feel abandoned, don't they?
Well, and look what pets do for you. Pets are present in the moment. You come in that door, what else are they thinking about?
Nothing.
They are present in the moment with you, and their mission is to make you feel like the pack. That's their mission. And they are going to do whatever it takes to make that happen.
They do. So if we think about confidence again, and obviously we've spoken about being present, we've spoken about having a genuine interaction with another person, which can boost our confidence as well. What other things can we do apart from what you've mentioned already to help build our confidence?
So one of the things I believe that is hugely helpful in building confidence is journaling. In journaling specific things. Journaling what you are grateful for that day, journaling a random act of kindness, which means you're going to hold yourself accountable to doing a random act of kindness. And this doesn't have to be you gave away a car. This can be you smiled at the grocery store clerk and you changed their day.
Yeah, or you opened a door for somebody who had a lot of shopping in their hands or something like that, something small.
Right. And then I also, a part of my daily journal, put in there to annotate what moments was I truly present for. And if I can do more than 3, then great. But if I can't do more than 3, then I better really work on that tomorrow.
Yeah, as long as you don't, the person who's doing it doesn't start beating themselves up because they didn't do it or they weren't able to do it. And that's the danger. Sometimes people can be too self-critical and say, I didn't do it, I'm not good. And that's not the purpose, is it?
No, it is absolutely not the purpose. Everybody is going to have days that you're not successful at things. And for me, I set those standards of 3 a day. But if you do 1, that's 1 more moment that you have that maybe you wouldn't have gone after to have. If you do 1 a week, that's 1 more moment that you have that maybe you wouldn't have gone after.
And that ties into your gratitude as well, doesn't it?
The mindset to go after it is really what we're looking for.
Yeah, and that ties into the gratitude. Yeah. You be grateful that you did this one thing which affected somebody. And, they both work together. And too many times I find that people are not grateful for themselves. They don't respect themselves. They don't congratulate themselves for anything they've done well. I mean, very often you say that was a great speech you gave. I said it was nothing. I made so many mistakes. Your focus is wrong. Your focus is on the mistakes and how badly you came across. You didn't see because of that how people were changed, how people were moved, how people loved it. And you did that, but you missed it. So that gratitude is crucial.
It is, but you know what? Our minds are set that when we look at history, because of our fight and flight responses, we look at where we failed. So if you watch a movie and you want to go back and watch portions of that movie, more than likely you're going to go back and watch the good portions because you don't want to watch the bad portions.
Yeah, and this
our minds work exactly the opposite. When we go back to what has happened in the past, our minds instinctively pull out what we didn't do well and what we failed at.
Yeah, and this is an unconscious programming, isn't it? That's been left in us from thousands of years.
It is. And so we have almost no control when we look at our history not to pull up that replay of all the bad sections. That's why when somebody can come off of a stage, of a speaking stage, and say, I didn't do this, and I didn't do that, and I didn't do this, instead of looking at what they did do well. And that's where some of that support system comes in, because we need somebody else to tell us
how good we are. Yeah. And, you know, it comes back to the other thing as well. There's two very important lessons that we have to get into our head, and it takes time to ingrain them. Number one is we should be grateful for the mistakes because they're the opportunities to grow. And we've got to focus on that aspect of the mistake. And the other one is to congratulate ourselves for the things that we can do.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So our brain works in the reverse when we are what I refer to as forward focusing. So when we look at towards the future, we're hopeful. And so the journaling, if we look at what we did today and it wasn't so great, we can be focused forward and be hopeful that tomorrow we can have impact we didn't have today. And the brain is very positive when it looks to the future.
Yeah, unless you're focused on failure, then you know that we have to. But again, it's that programming, and it's the habits we have to form to change that past programming. And you know, we have to do it in small ways, not big ways, because the big ways are too much. But if you can just write down, as you say, one thing I did that made someone smile or was good for someone else, and you keep doing that, then you start changing your thinking and start focusing on looking for the good things.
And there's something to be said about taking this big brain that we all have and making sure that we are programming it to look for the good things. It will become easier and easier and easier as the days go by. To produce that and to look for that. Yes.
So we start small and we get big, and that's that really is one of the cruxes of self-confidence, isn't it? Is recognizing how good you are. I mean, we go back to the baby who can't walk. We don't think about the difficulties it is, how difficult it is to walk, all the little movements, all the micro muscle movements, the balance, the whole thing. We just take it for granted and we dismiss it, as we do with so many other skills we got. But if you journal about the good points, about the things you've done well today, and how you've touched people and things like that, you start focusing on all these good things, and you don't dismiss that. You say, okay, I can walk. That's a great thing. I can actually walk, because some people can't.
Yeah.
And you don't realize, unless you're in that situation, or whether you work with those type of people, how big a problem that is for some people. So you focus on these little things about yourself, and it's not in a boastful way, but it's in a self-congratulatory way, that you are grateful that you've been able to learn this, and that it's a skill you have, and then you can just start affecting other people with this wonderful sort of new energy that you start developing. And then you write it down again, because you've done it now. You've helped somebody.
I will tell you, one of the things I also teach is nobody in this world, even if you are a twin or a triplet, nobody in this world has your perspective. And that perspective is so valuable. If we were all had the same perspective and we were put on a remote island and we were told to survive, we would all die because all of our skills are the same and we don't know how to pull off of one another. But if we all come in with different perspectives and we're able to communicate with one another, we can create a thriving community. So I truly believe each individual comes so special with their experiences and their DNA and their personality that is so needed in this world, no matter if they think they've failed their whole life or they think they're overly successful. For me, it comes down to their perspective is unique and we need it.
Yeah, and it's this thing, communication, again. Because we're not taught to communicate in a genuine way. We're not taught, what communication really means. And it's one of the subjects I feel that should be in school. We should be taught to communicate properly and understand what communication is. And unfortunately, it's not. And we have to fumble and struggle through life to understand what communication is. And some people don't ever find out.
Well, and employers today are struggling even more so now because employees are not coming in with those, what we refer to as soft skills, and communications is one of them, because we're doing almost all of our communication electronically. We don't know how to sit into a staff meeting and really kick ideas around with one another anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me the other day, I went out with my wife and a couple of her friends. And there were 8 people at the table, a dinner table, and only one person didn't have a phone in the face. And that was me. Everyone else the phone was in the face. They're eating, talking, playing on the phone at the same time. I thought, look, this is not right. There's something very wrong with this whole picture. And it's not unique. It's, as you say, it's a worldwide phenomena. And, Japan, they've I can't remember the term now, but they've got a lot of 25 to 30-year-old children. Parents have got a lot of, obviously 25 to 30-year-old children who are trapped in their houses because of this inability to communicate. They don't go out, they just focus on the computer and they communicate by computer and they don't know how to talk to a real person, and they won't go out. And there's a term they've coined for it, and I can't remember what it is, but there's something like 1 million people that they've recognized. And that's a frightening, thought. Very frightening.
For me, it's very frightening because I don't see how the majority of those people are going to be able to live out their mission as individuals and how they will ever really feel a part of society.
Well, obviously they're not part of society, are they? Because they're living in their little cave and their little dream world, the fantasy world of the computer game or whatever it is, and that's not good.
And our world is missing them. There's a quote, and I'm not going to get it right, that the majority of ideas are found at the cemetery. Because the person never communicates those ideas to somebody else because of fear or inability to communicate or self-confidence. And so they go to their grave with the ideas that could impact our world. And I think of these millions of people that you've just described that are now spending their day behind a computer. What is our world missing from them?
And this is the thing, recognizing that everybody has something good in them to share with everybody else, and that can affect us in a positive way.
Right. Even some of the worst of our society, and I believe I've told you that we have a jail not that far from here that houses some of the worst criminals in the world. Those folks give me value. They help me determine what's good and evil in this world. In their perspective, I need to have in my world so I can assess my world differently.
And
I don't know that I want them living next door.
No, but it's the ability to take that lesson and to see that there's something good even about the worst person, because I can learn something from it in some way. And, not just condemn the person and get rid of them out of there, because you're missing that learning, as you say, that point that they have. And then sometimes, even as you say, even the worst people can have a lot of goodness for somebody else in certain circumstances. So there's always some good in people, but
there is.
It's not easy to find it sometimes.
No, and there's good in very, very harsh situations. I remember when I walked the beaches of Normandy and thinking about all the lives that were lost there, and everything that the world lost on those beaches. But then I think, look at the courage that they showed us, and look at the ability to stay with a mission, and look at their ability to fight for what they thought was right. And the world needs to know that story. We need to know it existed, and it has impacted me. And I didn't even know those people on that beach.
Obviously, you know me, because that was a few years before you were gifted to us. So, Virginia, I'm just looking at the time, and we are getting a little bit over the time. So, I know you have a book, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit about the book.
So I have a couple of books. I have one book that was just printed. It's in my hands. It's called Creating Your Life, Mindfulness and Meditation. And it's several authors from around the world that have given us ideas how to move our life forward. But I am also writing my own book it's called The Truth About Trauma. And it's about my story and the lessons that I've learned that I want to give back to this world. So when they are going through struggles and change, that they have somebody that's been there and done that and can help them through what they're going through. So that book really isn't so much my story as it is a how to overcome.
And where can people get more of you? I mean,
they can get more of me through Facebook. I do a lot on Facebook. My Facebook page is Triumph After Trauma. And they can also get me through my website, which is www.triumphaftertrauma.org. Both of those places are great. They can also reach me via email, which is my first name, Virginia, at triumphaftertrauma.org.
Is that with a capital V or a small v? Virginia?
I don't know that it matters.
Okay.
I think they'll send it to me either way.
Okay, so what I will do is I'll put in the transcript in the show notes. I'll make sure that people get the links, because it saves them trying to write things down now. And what is it you actually offer to people who come to Facebook?
So one of the things that people that come to my Facebook page is Monday through Friday, my time. I do a 2-minute inspirational video that they can get every day for free. And I also do a Wednesday midday entrepreneurial class that brings in experts from around the world that will educate us on their expertise. And that is also 100% free. And if that class doesn't match their time zone, they can plug it in on a replay.
Okay, so your time zone is?
Mountain time in the United States.
Mountain time in the United States, okay.
So it's 11 a.m. on Wednesday. Mountain time is what I refer to as the Entrepreneur Success Academy.
Okay, well, that sounds really, exciting. So that's going to be maybe, I can't remember now, whether it's 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night. Anyway, I can have a look for the replay.
Yes, the replay. So you go to the same links and all you do is hit play and you won't get me live.
Yeah, so all the information is on the Facebook page for that.
Yes, and there's plenty more coming down the pike. I want to do, there's just plenty more coming. So people tune in. They will see more and more free stuff that we will put out there for them to chime into.
Well, that's great. And when do you expect the book to be published so we can buy the book as well? Is that going to be next year sometime?
Yeah, next year sometime. I would expect it to be late spring.
Okay, because I understand I've got 2 books in the pipeline, but I haven't got a deadline for them yet. So we get too many things.
I think it will be earlier than that. I'm not so sure it will be,
but
we are working pretty hard.
you know, if the guys go to Facebook, they'll be able to find out when it's live anyway. So, or they get, you know, in contact with you, they'll be able to find out.
They certainly will. And I am all about collaboration, and there will be plenty more that comes out to help support individuals and businesses move their lives forward.
Okay. Well, Virginia, you know, I don't want to be a killjoy, but it is getting on, and I know you've got things to do.
You gotta go.
Yeah, and you know, I'm really, really grateful for everything you've given us at the moment. I mean, it's been a wonderful interview. I've really enjoyed it. I think the viewers and the listeners are going to have a treat, you know, when they listen to it. So that's going to be great. And, you know, obviously we'll keep in touch and things like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, thank you so much for everything that you shared, really.
Thank you for what you're doing. You are one of my gems overseas, and maybe someday we'll actually meet in person.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I mean, the world is a small place. I mean, I can remember I was traveling in the middle of somewhere in Africa, and I met a guy who lived just around the corner from me, and I've got no idea he's there. So you never know where you're going to bump into somebody these days.
You don't. So thank you very much to your viewers and to you for your time, and take care.
Okay, thanks a lot, Virginia. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Confidence Bites, your weekly confidence building show, was brought to you by Stuart Elliott from Double C Coaching, www.doubleccoaching.com, DOUBLECCOACHING.com. For regular confidence building tips, subscribe to this channel today, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Stuart Double C, capital S T U A R T, capital D O U B L E, capital C, at Stuart Double C.